Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We are at the beginning of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe with Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. And back with us today, we have Niall McGowan from the Bat Minute. Welcome, Niall.
Well, thanks for having me back, guys. Always happy to come in to talk about some Iron Man.
We are looking at Iron Man Minute 114. On today's show, the minute starts with a fireball engulfing the big arc reactor building. And it ends with Agent Coulson letting Tony know that he was on his yacht. This is we're coming in right at the peak of the explosion in this minute. We have a nice shot of Tony trying to avoid this massive fireball erupting next to him. And then we see the wide shot of the building as the explosion rips out of it. And, it's a nice looking explosion. It does make me wonder how much of this is a real explosion, how much of this is just CG work. But it all looks really nice.
So my major question is, where did Pepper go? Because she was in the room, and then it's 30 seconds later, has she managed to completely clear the area? Because that fire comes out the friggin' door. So it's
Yeah, we did see her. We know she was at least running. So hopefully she got... yeah, that's a good question. Did she run into just a different corner of the building? Did she actually run out the door again to go talk to the security guard and get him to stop his Sudoku puzzle? I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is, that concussive blast at the beginning of that explosion as it rips out through it fills the parking lot. I am actually now worried about our Sudoku playing guard at the front gate because I feel like he is right in the path of that concussion, if not the fireball.
Right, because you do get that kind of concussive wave emanating from it as it goes, which, it doesn't seem to affect any of the vehicles sitting there. You think?
Yes, where I would think if any glass would break, it would be right there. Let's break some windows in cars.
He's bound to put down his game for Skybeam, though. That's got to be what the hell was that?
Right. At least he's sticking his head out of the window.
I like to think that he's got his, I guess we weren't quite at the era of the video phones yet. I was going to say, I'd like to think he's filming all of this to post somewhere, but to his MySpace page. He's at least taking pictures of it for MySpace. Yeah, this is, it does make you wonder what exactly is going on with Pepper through all of this. And again, going back to that deleted scene we talked about yesterday, it just makes that much less sense when you see such a huge explosion ripping through this building. And then you find out that, hey, Pepper is actually up on the roof trying to find Tony. I really question that.
Yeah.
Totally. I don't get it.
No.
I just wonder if it's supposed to be more of a symbolic thing. If maybe this time has passed and Tony's in and out of consciousness and he hears this some point, maybe it's 15 minutes later or something, and we're just we're not supposed to take it as a literal thing, or...
Well, to that point, that's kind of interesting because by the time, granted, the fireball goes away pretty quickly. It's an explosion. It doesn't linger as a fire, except some of the frame around kind of that front door area. But when we cut to that bird's eye view shot of Tony and kind of push in on him, yeah, even looking down for the very brief moment we can, down to where the arc reactor was, there's tiny little remnants of fire. So I think I could buy into the fact that some time has passed.
I also get the zoom in to the arc reactor in his chest, which I do like. This is almost kind of a Return of the King moment, though, where it's fading to black, and you're is it the end of the movie? No, it's not. It's actually there's another thing happening right now. But I actually miss the arc reactor as an element. I don't know. I know thematically in Iron Man 3, why they get rid of it. He has a whole thing why he gets rid of the arc reactor in his chest. But I do miss it in the movies. It's that's just a cool little thing that Tony Stark has this thing in his chest, and now they made him. Yeah, he's say he's just a man. He's also playboy, billionaire, philanthropist, and all that as well. But it was just always it was an element of Iron Man I liked. It's he has this arc reactor in his chest, and then they've got rid of it, and there's just seems to be they're not getting it back. It's just gone.
Yeah, it is a great piece, and it is very symbolic of kind of who Iron Man is. So I certainly hope, if we do end up having any more iterations of Iron Man after Endgame, I hope that they at least continue with it, just even if it's just for part of the look, because it does really, I think, it's part of who Iron Man is, having that chest piece there.
Yeah. And just utilize it so well in the movies. Like, for example, Loki trying to take over him, and then just the Loki pokey stick just meeting the arc reactor. I'm like, what the hell? But you can't do it. You did that now. It's like, no, Tony Stark would be as vulnerable as anybody else to that friggin' stick. So,
right. You brought up the whole fact that we got that beautiful camera shot where the camera cranes down right to Tony. This is a repeat of an image we've seen several times now through the film. The very first time we have this image is when he first gets blasted in the explosion back in the Kunar province, when the missile lands next to him and explodes. After he kind of falls to the ground and pulls his shirt open, revealing his Kevlar vest. There's the reverse of this, where we're starting on him and the camera lifts away from him. This is way back in minute 4. And then we have the reverse as he wakes up in the cave, the reveal of this battery connection to his chest and this iron, the arc reactor in it, or not the arc reactor, just the connections that Yinsen had made. And this is the push in. This is in minute 18. And then back in minute 74, we have, again, it's pulling out of this shot of where we're close on Tony and we're pulling away from him. This is when it's revealed that Obadiah betrayed him. And now we again have the reverse as we push in. It is a really effective tool that Favreau's been using quite a bit in this film to kind of create these moments of emphasizing kind of some powerful moments that I think are in Tony's life and key moments for him as this character, Iron Man.
I love it. I think it's really artful, and I also love it gives us the opportunity to slow down and take some stock of the suit and what has happened over the last 5 minutes of fighting, and how powerful Stane's effort was to duplicate what Tony had done with some grace. I do miss the fact that there's so much damage done to the suit and so much charring that, come from what I'm assuming is the explosive stuff going on around him, and none on his face or that exposed hand. I feel like just even some scrapes would be warranted here, but
he's got a scrape on his nose. He's got a little tiny
You're
cut.
right. He does have a cut on his nose and maybe something on his eyebrow. I don't know.
It actually looks like the cut on his forehead that he had earlier in the film is back, and it looks like it's in the exact same spot. Really inconvenient spot for head injuries to continue happening.
It's one of those weird ones.
But luckily, that Stark chin is looking great after having that helmet ripped off.
It's also weird that just from the angle, it looks as if his hand, his right hand it's just not there. It looks like it's been blown off or something. Like for a split second, you'd be like, he loses his damn hand.
That's what happens when that shield thing flared out. It just it wasn't intended for that. It just saws his hand off. That's the downside of using that. It's a real hero sacrifice.
We do have a couple tropes here that I think are very effective in superhero films and films like this. Really, any hero's journey type of film. You've got the rebirth of the hero. So the hero sacrificed himself in the last few minutes that we've seen. And now the rebirth, where it seems our hero is dead, but comes back to life. And that is paired with this other trope of, I guess you could call it, the important person in his life calling his name, and that is the thing that kind of brings him back. As the arc reactor in his chest kind of flickers, and it looks like it's kind of trying to come back, but not really. It's kind of like almost like dying, and it's the end of him. And then you have that echoey call of Pepper as she goes, "Tony!" And you just see it kind of start spinning up, and that's really kind of I guess what he needed to, the call of a loved one that brings him back to life. A couple tropes. What do you guys think? Did these work for you?
Oh yeah. I thought this, particularly with the way the music goes as well. It has a very nice, eerie feeling to it as well. But it's I think that that works great. I think that's just very, very well done.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some sort of a natural healing product at goop.com that will actually help accentuate your voice to be able to speak to machines. No, I actually really like it. And, I like the flashing of the chess piece. I think that looks good because it gives you this feeling that it's coming back to life, that it's something that's recharging itself, as we've discussed, in preceding minutes. Like there's always this question, what happens if you deplete it? Well, here it's getting stronger when it's not being called on to, do anything. So I feel like in the space of this sort of, heartwarming call to find Tony, we also learn even a little bit more about the technology, and I think the whole mix works.
I do wonder, because of the echoey nature of Pepper's voice, whether you could take it as been like, oh yeah, it's her looking for him, or it could be that like this is what you think are Tony Stark's dying thoughts, and he's remembering
maybe
Pepper from earlier in the scene when she was shouting out to him. That's the Tony he's hearing. Is like he's remembering her in his final moments in some way.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was convinced, I had convinced myself that when she calls for Tony right there, well, a couple things. One, I was surprised that it was not in the deleted scene when she actually finds him on the roof and flashes her flashlight on him, that we don't hear her say Tony there. So then I was like, okay, so where did that come from? And then I remembered that way back in the cave, he is tortured and he's dunked a bit. And we see kind of a flash of the arc reactor in his mind, as if it's coming to him in that moment. But we also hear Pepper say Tony in kind of this echoey fashion, and it made me wonder if it's the same Tony. It actually isn't, but it does make me wonder, where is this call for Tony coming from that he's hearing here, and what's the intention there? Like, or are they just hinting at the fact that she is out there searching for him, and he happens to hear her?
Well, and in that light, she's sort of his emotional Jarvis, like what Jarvis does for him practically when he calls her, like she's the anchor for him that happens to be another human. And so, in that light, I really like the fact that hers is the voice that he hears, whether she's standing right next to him or when it's just the voice he needs. That's great.
So you like that better than hearing Jarvis pop in? Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, sir. Yes, right. Wake up now. Wake up. Yeah. No, I like that much better.
Well, and then it's interesting because the way that this plays, we fade to black, and as we kind of push in right up on the arc reactor there, and then it cuts to this press conference that Rhodey is running. And it feels very funereal, weirdly. It feels like he's reading a statement about Tony's death or something. The way the music's playing, it just has this morbid tone to it. And it made me wonder, like, was that the tone they were going for here? I'm not quite sure if that was the intention, but it feels that way, the way that cut happens.
Oh, I think it definitely is. I think this is supposed to be a subtle joke in that you believe that Tony Stark, for a split second, you might believe that Tony Stark is dead, and you're watching Rhodey make a statement about him, and then the camera casually pans out, and he's just sitting reading the paper as if nothing really happened.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that whole setup is one for that split second joke, and because anyone who is at all into the lore of Iron Man is automatically spinning into where could they possibly take the story now if they're going to pretend that he's dead. And it may not last. You might not even believe that you're thinking it yourself, but you did. You thought it for a split second, and then we get that little payoff. And it looks great because now this is the Tony Stark that is reborn, right? This is Brave New World Tony Stark, and we get to see how he reacts and how he adjusts and how he is about to adjust more.
Well, and if any astute viewer of the film, especially those watching it minute at a time, would know that the scrolling text on the bottom does give away right away that Tony Stark's alive, because it does say
right.
Stark Industries CEO Tony Stark to read a prepared statement to the press in coming moments. No injuries have been reported in association with the arc reactor. They spelled it arc reactor with 2 C's, just to point out it is on screen. So it is with C's, according to the actual. They've committed. With the arc reactor malfunction on Stark Industries campus last night, Stark Industries SIA shares soar on rumors of new something. We'll have to wait till tomorrow to finish the text on the screen. But yes, you're right. We do come to find Tony, and here he is. This is that kind of suave, debonair playboy Tony that we have sitting here reading the paper. He's up in his office with Pepper as she's kind of cleaning him up, and he's reading the Chronicle with the headline, "Who is the Iron Man?" And the photo. Do you guys know much about the photo of the story of this newspaper?
No.
Not a thing.
This was quite an interesting debacle that happened back when they were filming this. There was an internet glimpse of Iron Man, courtesy of IESB.net. Ronnie Adams, who is a freelance photographer, he got close enough to the set to get some photos of the Iron Man suit in this, what would eventually be a battle scene. At this point, it was just Iron Man standing there. IESB put these images up on their website. Paramount had a fit. They came down on him. They contacted them, and IESB's hosting service had to pull the site offline. The internet went crazy because this guy, Ronnie Adams, he took the pictures as a freelance photographer. He did nothing illegal to get them. He took them, and IESB published them. Everything was above board. This turned into this huge thing where, because of Paramount's reaction, they had to apologize, and they had to invite IESB to this huge press thing where they basically got to do all this extra coverage of the movie, do all these interviews, do a set visit, all of this sort of stuff. Let's see, Robert and Stephanie Sanchez were the editors of IESB. They made T-shirts about this whole thing, and it was just this huge thing that happened at the time. And Favreau thought it was hilarious too, and so he actually took the photo that Ronnie Adams had taken that IESB published on their website. He actually used it as the photo in this newspaper, as this really funny reference to this whole joke. Well, IESB thought that was pretty funny too, but Ronnie Adams, the photographer, did not. He filed a lawsuit against Paramount and Marvel for the illegal use of his photo.
For Christ's sake.
It was bonkers. And so finally they settled. But when Paramount released it, the image that we are looking at of Iron Man in this newspaper is just this generic photo that they actually had found. It's not the version that was in the actual film version when we saw it. Yeah, I'm going to send you guys a link so that you can check out and learn more about this story. It's just wild that this whole thing happened this way.
Well, now, wait a minute. I'm misunderstanding that. You're just to clarify, the photo that I'm looking at in the minute.
In the film.
Right now on my screen.
Has been digitally replaced.
So the one we saw in the theater was not Ronnie's image. The one we have here is?
No, the one we saw in the theater was Ronnie's image, and he sued. And because of that suit and the settlement, they have now replaced that image digitally in the film after when it was released on DVD and Blu-ray and digital and all that sort of stuff. So you will never see Ronnie's image in the film again.
But the one I'm looking at here on Collider, I see it now with the kind of yellow background.
That is Ronnie's image.
That's Ronnie's image.
Yes.
Wow. What a story. That's awesome.
So funny how things unfold like this. So, and it's not that special of an image.
No.
I think that it's just a really funny thing that Favreau did that was like, oh, this would be kind of funny to do. And it turns into this thing that, cost Paramount even more money over it.
So great. I love it. And it looks like IESB is no longer around.
It was did you go to IESB.net?
I did.
.net. Yeah.
I did. It's a dead page at register.com.
Oh, you're right.
This could be like, hey, you mess with Marvel. You mess with Disney.
That's
they
right.
come for you.
Drop a helicarrier on your house.
That's right.
Do you think, though, this one of these things now, because we've been doing it loads with Batman, where we're like, oh, if this was a more modern movie, they'd be putting in more references to things. Do you think, because at this point, obviously, Marvel had, the limited rights to characters. Do you think if it had been different circumstances that Tony would have been reading, like, the Daily Bugle or something along those lines? Or do you think
that's actually really funny, because Christine Everhart, the reporter who we're going to see, you won't see her, but next week, and she was the one at the very beginning of the film, she actually worked for the Daily Bugle. That was her newspaper. And it felt like they were trying to ground it in the real world a little more by not making it a fictional paper, by having her working for Vanity Fair. And so I appreciate that, but I do think you're right. I think that instead of the Chronicle, I would love to have seen, it wouldn't have made sense for it to be the Daily Bugle because we're over in LA, but I like the idea of it being something that would have been tied in a little more.
Yeah, that's interesting. It takes you sort of, when I hear the Daily Bugle, like that belongs in a certain franchise, and I wonder if we're not sort of at the, we're so early in that it would have taken you out of the universe in this movie had we seen more of it. I'm curious why, I guess there's a good chance we'll start seeing even more of it as they further integrate, but and I think they've earned the place for more of those kinds of references in the later movies. But I like that it's a little bit more grounded in the universe that we live in. It softens the entry for those who are not already inducted into the universe.
Right.
How do you? This is a weird thing though I have, and just looking at it here as a headline, like, who is the Iron Man? Because I have a big thing in the first season of Batman where I really like when Batman is referred to as the Batman, because it just makes it sound like he's a mythical kind of creature sort of thing. For some reason, the Iron Man rubs me the wrong way, though. It's like, no, it's just Iron Man. And again, I don't know. I don't think they ever refer to him as the Iron Man outside this movie. I think he always just goes, because Iron Man, because he's not mythical, he is, exactly who he is. So,
well, and he takes on the mantle too, right? Like later in this film, we haven't gotten there yet, but he'll fully embrace the mantle of this character. What I think that the headline does, I always read it as they're not titling him Iron Man. They're saying, who is the Iron Man? Like, who is this man made of iron walking around the streets? That's how I've always read the headline. Although technically, and Pete, you can speak more to this, in the world of journalism, wouldn't they drop the A, N, and the anyway?
Right. Yes, it should be who is Iron Man. But I actually think that this is a legit complaint here, Niall, too, because I agree with you. For some reason, it works. Like, who is the Batman? That works for me in a way that this I find jarring, and I am relieved that it's completely resolved within 3 minutes. That this is a frustration that can only exist in this little tiny window.
Yeah, I do wonder what it is, where it just instantly irked me when I saw it, because the Batman makes you think of like the Wolf Man or the Invisible Man, something like kind of a very horrific kind of idea. Whereas the Iron Man just doesn't sound right. It's just like, no, Iron Man is just his title. Like, I am Iron Man. Like, that's just. So just it irked me somewhat, but again, you don't get it beyond the next couple of seconds, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's I like that we're already getting Tony kind of being dismissive of it. I mean, he's like, that was kind of catchy, but it's wrong. It's a gold titanium alloy. Like,
It's my favorite.
Like, I mean, he's so perfect at saying stuff like that. It's brilliant, which I think is a lot of fun. And then of course, Agent Coulson. This is the reveal that Agent Coulson is alive. He was in the basement. The last time we saw him, he was with Daryl and Jason, and two of our other agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As they're exploring the basement, we see Ironmonger kill the other three, but Agent Coulson and I think Daryl had gone off down the way. And Jason, who is kind of our eager beaver, we had no idea what happened to him. So it's nice to know that Agent Coulson made it out alive. I hope that means that Daryl and Jason did as well. But I don't know if Endgame will answer that, or if we'll ever get to find out about the fates of Daryl and Jason.
Yeah. Plus, I wouldn't bet, because, not to get into any spoilers or further down the line, but Agent Coulson's come back from the dead before, so that might not be the original Agent Coulson you're seeing right there.
Right.
What's interesting is in the script, Agent Coulson is not here. It's actually just Tony and Pepper. And Pepper basically has all of his lines. She's saying, here's your alibi. You were on your yacht. I've got port papers, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, maybe it was just the two of us on the yacht. And she's like, focus, please. It's weird. It's kind of odd that it's just the two of them. And she's doing all of this sort of delivery here. I think that to that end, it speaks to the way that Clark Gregg, as Agent Coulson, they found such a strong character there that people loved, and they wanted to find a way to continue it with this whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing. I really like having him in here and not just Tony and Pepper.
Yeah, I do like. Well, I suppose we'll talk about it in the next minute when it's
sure.
said. But
yeah.
I do want to be just there for like, well, there's a thing we're setting up that he has to say. In a
well, and at this point,
time.
You're sitting in the theater and you're like, say it, say it, just say it, for crying out loud. And so it's perfect. I mean, it's in that regard, it's perfect.
Yeah, you're dangling from the theater roof. Just push it. Exactly.
I do not care that it's a completely telegraphed setup at all. I want it.
We'll talk about that next minute, though.
Yeah, we will. We'll get more of that. Right. But to that end, I don't have anything else for this minute, unless you guys have something else. We can wrap it up and come back tomorrow for 1:15 and more Agent Coulson.
For crying out loud, let me hear what he says next.
All right. Well, Niall, thanks again for joining us today.
Oh, thanks again for having me in this lovely Thursday afternoon, guys.
Absolutely. Well, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you and learn more about Batminute?
Over at Batminute, we're doing what you guys are doing, only with the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher Batman movies. We're currently at the end. I think actually, by the time this air, we'll probably have wrapped up Batman Returns. Actually, I can't tell between where we're recording and what the air, because there's such a big buffer between. Then we'll be moving into Batman Forever later in the year. And you can find us just Google Batminute. I've tested it, and we do come up. So
good. I'm glad between Monday and now you finally have checked those out to make sure they work.
And if it doesn't work for you for some reason, just Batminute podcast will come up. So
perfect, awesome. All right, everybody. Well, that is it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at MarvelMovieMinute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers.